big question is this: how did I buy over 200 properties and build a multi-million pound property business, then lose my wife, lose my children, lose my home, lose my businesses, and lose my liberty, when I was sentenced to nearly 5 years in prison for a crime committed by a lifelong friend, then leave prison with no home, no income, in £175,000 of debt, and then find the courage to start over and build a successful business, now doing $500,000 in revenue in the last 12 months. Now, this podcast will give you those exact tactics, those exact strategies, and the answers. Hey podcasters, this episode might upset you because we talk about mental health, a topic that we haven't really covered much, but it's in the public domain. It's a massive problem. We talk about the passing of Caroline Flack recently, multiple suicides as well that I witnessed in custody. So our thoughts go out, our thoughts and prayers go out to Caroline Flack's family right now, which is terrible. It's a huge loss for anybody to lose a child, and obviously the ripple effect that has on everybody else and the rest of the world, to be honest. Now, firstly, this episode is a tribute to Caroline Flack and also the Samaritans. I'd like to tribute this episode to the Samaritans because without the Samaritans, they help many people with mental health problems and suicide as a whole, suicidal thoughts, or people that have attempted suicide, or or have taken their life, and they support some of the victims' families in that sense. At the same time, the Samaritans, they inspired me to discuss mental health and suicide today on this podcast, which is something that more of us need. I think it's not widely discussed enough. It's not in the public domain enough with regards to the help and the support that's out there for anybody that's in a situation where they're attempted to, or they're considering to take their own life. And I mean, me myself personally, I spent 5 years, or nearly 5 years, as a Samaritan. So I'm grateful to have been part of that team that it's one of the oldest teams or oldest establishments that is here to try and help tackle mental health and help people that that need somebody to talk to. So I'm really grateful to have spent that time with those guys. Now, it's a horrendous thing when somebody takes their own life. Now, no one's life or somebody's life in the public domain, for example, Caroline Flack, who recently took her own life, which is terrible. It gives me goosebumps. Gives me goosebumps right now. You can probably see them on me, on my face, on my wrist, because hope you can see that and zoom in on the camera. It's a terrible, horrendous thing. I mean, but no. Nobody's life or a life isn't worth more or less. It's just life in general, which is, it's a terrible shame. I mean, being in the public domain and obviously taking your own life, it means that the world knows about the tragedy. The world sees it. It's discussed in the news for a while. It's like a national mourning as well for, like a national treasure in the UK. So it's a terrible thing that's happened. I mean, before we go further into this episode, if there's anybody here listening right now who suffers with mental health, or knows somebody who's suffering with mental health, or is suffering with depression, or has some suicidal thoughts, I mean, definitely reach out to the Samaritans. I mean, a link for you to, or some resources for you guys to get in contact with them will be on this page somewhere, wherever you're watching this on the podcast, or if you're watching it on YouTube or LinkedIn or somewhere else on social, Facebook, etc., whatever camera or audio you're listening to or watching. Then there'll be some resources for you to speak to or reach out to the Samaritans. And there's one more place, or another piece of advice I'd like to give you guys for anyone suffering with mental health or thinking about suicide or even depression. I mean, there's a doctor that I came across on social. Now, funny enough, I came across her for the first time on TikTok, the app which we're going all in on right now, and it's a doctor which I've noticed has got a massive following. She's a clinical psychologist. Okay, now she's basically a TikTok psychologist, helping people for free, completely free. Now, I think it's a fantastic thing that she's doing. I support everything that she's doing. I'm a huge fan of her. It's a fantastic, massive movement that so many young people can relate to what she's saying and what she's talking about in her TikToks, 15, 30, 60 seconds each day. She's posting at least once a day, maybe many more times, and she get thousands and millions of views and etc., etc. So it's worrying. At the same time, I'm really pleased for her, because it means that on the worrying side, so many people are suffering or struggling with this, and they're looking for advice, and they're following her so they can, watch her TikToks and obviously, try to help them get through challenges of depression or suicidal thoughts or anything to do with mental health, just to help them in daily life. And obviously, at the same time, it's fantastic that she's helping inspiring so many people. At the same time, because there's so many people that she's helping inspiring, it means that there's definitely a need, a pull, a demand, a vacuum of so many people that are struggling with these things, and they're looking for help in their life. Now, that's a good thing. And when I say these things, I mean mental health. Nothing to be ashamed of. Lots of people suffer with mental health issues. I mean, even an OCD is a mental health problem, which I've spoken about in other podcasts and this podcast and different episodes, that I had OCDs as a child with the light switches, how many times you turn them on and off before you can turn them on or before you can turn them off. So if any of you guys want to reach out to Dr. Julie Smith, her picture should be on the screen somewhere around here now. And I guarantee if you find her on social, follow her on social, the information she gives away daily, it can change your life for the better. It can help people out of any, mental health situations they're in, or depression that they might be suffering with, and just help them just think that little bit differently, which can only help them in their lives. So, what I'd like to, talk about now is, obviously you guys will know, when I was sentenced to a prison term for a crime that was committed by a lifelong friend of mine, it meant that I had to spend nearly 5 years of my life in prison. Now, being stuck in a place like that, I remember the first day that I was in prison, or let me rephrase that, the first day that I was released onto the wing in the prison, because I was there for a week or 10 days or so, first of all, in isolation, in a solitary confinement. So it was ACAT conditions when I first went in. If you can imagine how the prison system works, A is when you're the highest risk, then you're lowered to B, then you're lowered to C, and then you can get lowered to D, which is on release, where they let you go out before you've been released from prison. So I went from all the categories, from category A, where it's solitary confinement, you're on your own, you're in a prison. There's a prison within the prison, and then within the prison it's called the segregation unit, and you're in that segregation unit where you're locked up for 23 and a half hours a day. You just get let out for 30 minutes to exercise. So from, being at a New Year's Eve party with my family and friends, to finding myself in ACAT conditions in an ACAT prison, wearing a green and yellow escape suit. So a horrible, horrendous experience. We'll talk about that in another episode. Anyway, now on my first day being released from the segregation unit into the wing or onto the wing, I saw a poster of the Samaritans. Now, I've never really thought about the Samaritans before this point. I've never really, considered myself that could maybe help people with mental health issues or depression or suicidal thoughts, or even people that have attempted suicide. Now, it was just something that I decided to do because I thought to myself, the best thing I can do with my life right now, knowing that I'm obviously locked in custody for however long, which turned out to be nearly 5 years, is to give back some way, to help other people. And it was actually a coping mechanism for me, to be honest, and it saved me as well at the same time, and really opened my eyes to lots of different things, and being more thoughtful and understanding of how people are in situations when they're depressed, when they're very down, maybe when they got bipolar, maybe when they've got mental health issues and suicidal thoughts, or they've attempted suicide, or they're attempting suicide in front of me. So what the Samaritans did for me is, obviously they put me through a 6-week intensive training program, which was in custody, and which was very eye-opening. The training that I got for those guys, I mean, I have huge respect for the Samaritans still now after leaving custody, and I'll go back and help them like a shot if they needed any help, etc. And it always stays with me, that being the Samaritan and having the skills that they taught me, and it's transferable in other parts of life, those listening skills. And obviously it's also great to help other people and just listen to other people and explore their thoughts and feelings to help them make their own decisions, and obviously overcome any mental health challenges they have. And especially the ultimate goal is to prevent suicide, which is what they're trained for. Now, obviously with Caroline Flack recently, maybe she didn't have somebody in her life she could speak to like that. Maybe she didn't have the courage to speak to the Samaritans either. I mean, if I knew now what I knew, if when I was in my teens, if I knew then what I know now, I would have been on the phone to the Samaritans maybe once a month, or maybe once a week, or sometimes whenever there's a trigger and there's a big problem in my life, because I suffered with some, anxieties and things when you're an adolescent, and some confidence things in different areas of my life, and some OCDs, and just growing up being a mixed race child with a white mother and a black father, as a single parent in like a white community in West London, and then the southeast of England, being like the only black boy in the village or in the school. And it was a village to start when we moved to Battle in Hastings. So yeah, some of those things took its toll, and looking back, there was lots of challenges in my life. I mean, if I would have known then what I know now about the Samaritans, it was like the light bulb moment. I would have been calling them, my life would have been better, I would have navigated through the ocean of, all of those black holes of, like the Bermuda Triangle of trouble and strife and issues and problems and confidence issues and some mental health challenges and self-esteem and all of those things that you have as you're growing up, which lots of people won't want to admit to. Excuse me. The Samaritans would have been fantastic for me to call then. So I wish I knew then what I know now about the Samaritans and how fantastic they are to help, and obviously Dr. Judy Smith as well. Would have been game-changing. But I mean, after a period of time of being a Samaritan, in custody I was a Samaritan. So if you can imagine, it was only men that I was working with or dealing with or helping or supporting or talking to or confiding in. And I witnessed grown men, big men with muscles and huge, and traps on their neck, and so big it's like they've got loaves of bread under their arms, and big strong guys that I mean, they're scary characters and they're in there for some scary, horrendous, violent crimes as well. So, they're powerful in their own body, and there's no stopping them when they've decided to do something, and especially when it's to do with violence. I mean, these are big, strong beasts of men on the outside when they're on the wing and they're walking around and you see them and the bravado, but when it gets behind closed doors and the cell door is closed and they're on their own, and they're battling with their own demons in their own mind, because now the ego's gone, the bravado's gone, there's nobody around to impress. They can literally just and be themselves, and when they're on their own and they're facing life in prison, it could be, or even a year in prison, or when they're facing having no family left on the outside, or maybe their wife is going to leave them, or their wife has now found somebody else because they're in prison, or they said it's a final straw, you're back in jail, you promised you wouldn't go to jail or prison again, and now you've left us all as a family, and they have those battles and challenges and demons to deal with. So some of them are just like broken shells inside, or some broken men in that sense, and the bravado's gone. They're a completely different person when the cell door closes. Now, my job as a Samaritan was to go and see those people who pressed a button, pressed a buzzer, when they have mental health issues, when they have had some bad news from the outside, which is obviously, the real life that you live in, or we live in, and they're locked in a cage and everything is magnified, if you can imagine. Everything is bigger, everything is worse, everything is so traumatic. They're helpless, they're hopeless, they can't help, they have no control, they have no power, they're locked in a cage, and all they have is the phone when they come out of the cell, those very few minutes to ring and communicate with their family and their loved ones. And they can't really help, they can't earn any money, they can't really make any decisions from a prison cell, and it's a helpless situation to be in. So I do, because of spending nearly 5 years of my life there, I do understand how they feel, I do understand those mental challenges if you're not strong-minded. And it's not about being just strong-minded. Everyone can have mental health problems, faced on, there could be a bereavement in a family. There could be some very, very tragic or traumatic news. There could be you've lost your job. It could be, that something's just changed like that in your life, or even just losing control. And now you've got some challenges and some demons to deal with. So, some of these guys I used to go and see, they're suffering with depression. They maybe not have anyone to talk to, but I'm glad that they found the Samaritans in prison. And I was so glad to be part of that Samaritans team where, I could be, called out to a cell with someone where you have to go into the cell and sit with them. And there's nobody standing outside the door, however fragile they are, however strong they are, however unstable they are, whatever crime they've committed, whether they're a rapist, whether they're a murderer, whether they're a serial killer, whether they're a fraudster, or whether they're an armed robber, whatever crime or horrendous or heinous crime they're there for, as a Samaritan you can't judge. I mean, I can remember the many, nearly all of the inmates, probably all of the inmates I remember that had mental health issues, and I was called out to them at all hours through the night. I mean, sometimes I would sit in the cell with them for up to even 7 hours. I remember 7 hours just listening to them, just to help them and help them explore their thoughts and feelings, because that's what the Samaritans trained me to do, and that's what I was there to do, to help them, not give them the answers, even though when you know the answers, it was just to help them go deeper into their problem or their challenge or their issue or their suicidal thoughts, to just to try to lead them towards the path where they have that realization, they have that light bulb moment, they have the aha moment, and just something switches in their mind like that for them to sort of wake up or clear the fog, or the fog lifts, the mist lifts, for them to sort of recognize and have a word with themselves to say, I can beat this, I can get through this, this isn't going to get me, I'm not going to take my own life, I'm not going to self-harm, because, I'm worth more than that, or I can overcome this. And it's those small steps and those little baby steps that the Samaritans help them take by holding their hand or talking to them, discussing things with them, helping them explore their thoughts and feelings. Because at the time when they're going through these mental health issues or challenges and problems in their life, they're the people are fragile. They're like a shell of themselves, and they can't think straight sometimes, and it clouds their judgment, and their world is ruled by this problem that they have, deep inside their core. And I'm just really grateful to have been a Samaritan and gone through their training to be able to help them, because for someone wanting to commit suicide, it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it now. It's a terrible, horrendous thing for anyone to go through and experience themselves, and then their family and friends and loved ones, and the rest of the world, if they're in the public domain, to go through as well. So if there's anything anybody can do to help anyone around them or near them that might be suffering with those suicidal thoughts, it's a huge achievement if you can just be there and just listen. And just going back, it could be there's multiple reasons that I came across, which I won't go into in too much depth now, about why someone might want to commit suicide. But obviously life is precious and worth a lot more than that if they've got someone to help them, to hold their hand, or just to give them that little bit of guidance, or just that little bit of support that they need to pull them through that black hole, or to pull them out of that black hole, or that sinking sand, or the deep dark places of their mind where not a lot of good comes from. And what it taught me about people, or what I learned about people with mental health challenges and suicidal thoughts, and some had even attempted to commit suicide, is many of them, they just need somebody to talk to. Somebody that they can confide in, somebody they can just relate to, or someone that can just listen. What I've really learned is, if they've got someone that can just listen, and listen at a deeper level, where they're actually interested in listening and interested in helping them, so they're sincere, not just lip service and nodding and, oh well, just come out and go for a drink and everything will be okay in the morning. It's a deeper level of listening. It's like really connecting with that person and understanding their challenges and what they're going through, being sympathetic, having empathy, and just being there to listen. It's so powerful. And it's when I think back to some of the inmates that I went to see, it could be anything from they've got nobody in their life. It could be they've got a problem in prison that they can't face, which is why they're thinking or attempting of suicide, or why they're depressed. It could be even getting released, which you may think is a bit odd. There's so many people that I've spoken to that were thinking of suicide, or it was running through their mind, or they've even attempted it because the anxiety that they're going through, because they were being released from prison. Can you imagine? You're in that horrible situation, you've been taken away from your friends, your loved ones, your family, or even just you've lost your liberty if you have no one, and you're now about to be released back into the community, and your biggest fear now is not being in prison, it's leaving prison, the day you leave custody, because you've now become sort of institutionalized. Everything is there, doctors there, healthcare's there, you've got your community there in that sense, whether they're good or bad for you, people who know you, and you may have that respect and that bravado of being in jail, and maybe coming out to nothing, maybe having nowhere to go, maybe having the responsibilities of life by leaving custody, where everything's done for you in there. You'll just have a regime, do this, do that, and that's it. These are the times they open the doors, these are the times they close the doors, these are the times you have to be here, there and everywhere. If you're not, you're in trouble. Now they have to act for themselves and do everything for themselves when they leave. That alone is unimaginable for you guys to think, but that brings its anxiety, its challenges, it comes with depression attached to it, it comes with suicide attached to it, or suicidal thoughts. And there's been many times where us as a team of Samaritans, where there was normally about 10 or 12, have to go to see people, and I did many times just before they're about to be released, because they can't face being released into the public. Okay? Now, I mean, what did I learn about myself? I learned how to recognize somebody who's suffering from depression, and I learned how to recognize the tools that I need, which the Samaritans gave me, which helps somebody else avoid taking their own life, which is the goal for being a Samaritan. It's powerful. It's very satisfying knowing that, you know, somebody that you have the skills to help, or just to talk to, or to listen to, didn't take their own life that night that you went to see in their cell, or you went to sit with them. That when the door closed and they're on their own with their own thoughts, you was there to help them, to give them the courage to not take their own life. And I remember those nights after going to see somebody who you've been told before you go to see them that they've attempted suicide. So they've either cut themselves very bad, or they've self-harming, or they've made a noose to actually hang themselves, etc. And you've been told, or you've been taken to see them, you've spent several hours with them, talking to them, helping them explore their thoughts and feelings, not giving them advice or telling them what to do, even though you can usually from the outside looking in see the problem or see the solution or the answer, but you can't tell them that, because that's not what the Samaritans are there for. And I mean, they have to realize it themselves. So when you've invested that time and that effort and the emotions, so you're feeling, some of the pain of what they're going through, at a higher level. I remember when the door, or when I was put back into my cell at night, and you're lying in bed, ruminating on what just happened, or the situation you was in, or how bad that person's life is, and how close they were to suicide. And then you have the thought in the back of your mind about when you get let out in the morning, will they have taken their own life? And have I done something wrong? Or could I have done something better? Or did I say the wrong thing? Or did I do the wrong thing? Because if you hear in the morning that they've died or taken their own life, obviously you think you failed. So it comes with a lot of responsibility to carry on your shoulders at the same time. So I remember many times, the first thing in the morning when they would open the door, I would be ready. I would be standing by the door. Everything would be done for me to, ready to leave my cell, etc. And I would go straight to their wing, wherever they are, or wherever they were, or wherever they're working, etc., to find them at their door as quick as possible. And then obviously, look in, see how they are, and the sigh of relief that I felt knowing that they've gone through the night when they were attempting suicide the night before, and in the morning they're alive. They haven't taken their own life. I mean, that alone it's giving me goosebumps now just thinking about it. It's a very moving moment. And I'm very proud to have been trained by the Samaritans, which that is the ultimate goal, to stop somebody, anybody, a stranger, in their hour of need or at the time of need, that just needs somebody to talk to or somebody to listen, so they don't have that desire anymore to take their own life at the time. And that's a very satisfying and rewarding experience for myself. And I'm really grateful to have been part of Samaritans for that time, to have experienced that and to help some people. I'd like to think that many people now that be thinking about me, that guy that came into their life at that time when they needed help and they decided to not go down a certain path. And I mean, that's not just for me, it was all of the other Samaritans that were in there as well. There was a team of us, like I said, so that makes me feel good about myself and helps me sleep better at night. So I mean, life is so precious. I suffered with mental health challenges growing up, like I said, from OCDs and procrastination, which still affects me today, even before I recorded this episode, because I'm about to go into some meetings. I'm just taking this time in the car to, record this episode before I go into these meetings. And, I was delaying things and procrastinating, thinking about, is the lighting okay? Is this okay? What about this? What about that? And the reality, reading emails, and the reality is, it's just another mild form of mental health. So, what I learned from the Samaritans is my life would have been better, like I said earlier, if I would have known about the Samaritans when I was younger, what I know about Samaritans now, and had the confidence to call them or speak to them or ring them or email them or text them or chat with them online, etc. When I was faced with any of those problems or challenges or hurdles in my life. And I think anybody listening to this right now that has any challenge or any mental health problem, don't let it go so far, or don't let you go so deep into that dark sinking sand or that dark tunnel or that black hole of that spiral. It can easily spiral out of control quite quickly. So, just pick up the phone, contact the Samaritans. I mean, fuck. I would have had a much easier life with less stress, less anxiety, and just more fun and more control over my life if I would have known about this and had the confidence to do this at a younger age. So rather than carrying that heavy burden with me all through my youth, I could have slept a lot better at night and led just a better life from a younger age. Obviously, it took me a while to come out of those or overcome those problems and challenges I had, because again, I was a young guy growing up with a bit of bravado. I didn't want to seem as being weak and talking to somebody, but it's not weak talking to somebody or being judged by somebody. They're just a wrong friend if they do judge you. So, my advice for anybody here, if there's anybody struggling with depression, anybody struggling with mental health, anybody struggling with any of those suicidal thoughts or anything like that, if you don't have anybody to speak to, then I urge you to call the Samaritans. You can find them online. You can find them below this, or the resource links wherever you're watching this or listening to this. There'll be some show notes or cliff notes or links, etc., for you to contact the Samaritans. And even Dr. Julie Smith, I'm going to put her details on there as well, because nobody needs to suffer like that. Nobody needs to go through those things, and nobody needs to think they're alone and isolated at a time like this. And if you don't want to reach out to any of those guys, you can always just reach out to me on social, or DM me on social, or contact my office, team Ryan at theyrentanyhome.com, and I'll always be happy to have a conversation with you and just listen. And hopefully that helps. So I hope you get some value from this episode. It's a bit different today. It's quite deep today about suicide, mental health, and obviously it's a tribute to the Samaritans and Caroline Flack, what's happened recently. It's a tragedy that's happened. It's a shame that that's happened. That's inspired me to do something like this. But I just hope that you guys get some value from this, and it maybe helps you or somebody else out of a hole in their life. So the worst doesn't happen, which is we don't want anybody to take their own life. Nobody wants anyone to take their own life. So I hope you got some value from this episode. I would love to hear your thoughts. Hey podcasters, I really appreciate every single one of you listening to my show, and I guess you're getting value from it, which is why you're listening in the first place. So please, please, please do share this podcast, share this show with anybody that you think will benefit from listening to my content. Now, because I understand the value of shouting you out or shouting your company out or even putting you on the show, if you subscribe, leave a 5-star review, I will shout you out or your business on the next show.